Okay, R. Kelly.
The stage lights burn bright. A single man stands before a roaring crowd, his voice sharp, his mind sharper. Every joke hits like truth wrapped in laughter. He's untouchable. This is Dave Chappelle, the man who made America laugh at itself. But one day, at the height of his fame, he vanished. No farewell tour, no interviews, just silence. Hollywood called him crazy. The media called him unstable. Fans called it a tragedy. Because how could anyone walk away from $50 million and disappear to Africa? Behind the laughter was a man haunted by fame, pressure, and the cost of honesty in an industry built on illusion. He wasn't just a comedian. He was a mirror held up to a nation that didn't always like what it saw. And so, he did the unthinkable. He chose truth over money, freedom over fame. This is the story of the most fearless voice in comedy, the man who refused to bow to Hollywood. The journey of Dave Chappelle begins long before the spotlight ever found him. Dave Chappelle was born in Washington, D.C. on August 24, 1973, a city divided by power and poverty, politics and protest. His father, William David Chappelle III, was a philosophy professor. His mother, Yvonne, was an activist who once worked with Congolese leader Patrice Lumumba. In that home, laughter and revolution shared the same table. Dave's childhood was a tug of war between two worlds. Weekdays were spent in Silver Spring, Maryland, suburban, calm, intellectual. Weekends were in Washington, D.C., where reality was rougher, louder, and real. His parents divorced when he was 6, leaving him drifting between homes, searching for belonging in both. His mother filled the house with books, speeches, and soul music. His father taught him to think deeply about justice, about truth, about why people laugh in the face of pain. But school was where Dave learned performance. He wasn't the biggest or the strongest kid, but when he made people laugh, he was untouchable. At 14, he stepped onto the stage for the first time at a local comedy club. He wore oversized shoes, a borrowed jacket, and nerves that shook like lightning. When the audience roared, something clicked. This was more than fun. It was purpose. He once said, "My parents were the kind of people who made the world better. I just wanted to make it lighter." That blend of intellect, empathy, and irony became the foundation of his voice, a voice that would one day speak uncomfortable truths through laughter. Long before Hollywood came calling, Dave Chappelle had already learned the most important lesson. You can make people listen, if you can make them laugh. In the early 1990s, New York City was the heart of comedy. Loud, ruthless, and alive. A teenage Dave Chappelle arrived with a backpack, a dream, and $20 in his pocket. He performed anywhere that would hand him a microphone, from smoky clubs in Greenwich Village to half-empty bars at 2 a.m. Sometimes the crowd laughed. Sometimes they didn't. But Dave never stopped showing up. Rejection was constant. He was too young, too raw, too political. Agents told him to tone it down. Don't talk about race. It won't sell. But Dave couldn't help it. His jokes were rooted in truth, not approval. He started gaining attention in the underground comedy scene. By 19, he was the youngest comedian ever to perform on Def Comedy Jam, and he stole the show. His sharp wit and fearless timing turned heads across the industry. Then came Hollywood. In 1993, Mel Brooks cast him in Robin Hood, Men in Tights. It was his first film role. A small part, but one that showcased his effortless charisma. Dave's humor was different. Clever, unpredictable, and fearless. More roles followed, but none truly captured his voice. Hollywood wanted him to play stereotypes. The funny black guy, the sidekick. He wanted something more. So he started writing. In 1998, Dave co-wrote and starred in Half-Baked, a stoner comedy that bombed at the box office but later became a cult classic. He'd made his first mark, but not yet his masterpiece. Through failure and frustration, Dave learned the truth about fame. It rewards imitation, not authenticity, but he was waiting for the right stage, one where he could say exactly what he thought. And in 2003, that stage finally arrived. In 2003, television would never be the same again. Comedy Central gave Dave Chappelle his own show, a risky experiment called Chappelle's Show. It was raw, unfiltered, and dangerously funny. No one, not the network, not even Dave, expected what would happen next. Week after week, millions tuned in to see a man who said the things everyone else was afraid to. He mocked power, race, fame, and politics, all with a grin that dared you to be uncomfortable. Sketches like The Racial Draft, Rick James, Prince, and Black Bush became instant cultural landmarks. They weren't just comedy. They were commentary. And in every episode, Dave turned the mirror on America and said, "Look closer." Chappelle's Show was lightning in a bottle, a phenomenon that crossed lines of color, class, and culture. Hip-hop icons quoted his jokes. Politicians referenced his sketches. Even critics who disagreed with him couldn't deny his brilliance. Dave wasn't just a comedian anymore. He was a movement. But behind the laughter, something darker brewed. The show's success brought massive pressure. Executives demanding more, fans demanding everything. As the audience grew, so did the misunderstanding. People laughed, but not always for the right reasons. Jokes meant to challenge racism were sometimes used to reinforce it. And that terrified him. Fame had turned into a trap. Suddenly, Dave, the man who built his name on truth, was surrounded by people who only cared about profit. The network waived a $50 million contract for more seasons. The world saw opportunity. Dave saw danger. He once said in an interview, "The worst thing you can call a man is crazy. It dismisses everything he's trying to say." At the height of his power, Dave Chappelle began to wonder if the laughter he created was worth the price he was paying. And soon, he would make a decision that would shock Hollywood and define his legacy forever. In 2005, at the height of his fame, Dave Chappelle vanished. No press release, no final episode, just gone. Production on Chappelle's Show Season 3 stopped overnight. The studio panicked, rumors exploded, and Hollywood's most bankable comedian had suddenly walked away from a $50 million contract. The headlines were ruthless. Chappelle loses his mind. Crack addiction. Pressure breakdown. The world wanted a scandal, but the truth was more human and far more profound. Dave was drowning in success. The show that once gave him power now felt like a prison. His jokes, created to challenge racism, were being twisted and laughed at for racist reasons. Audiences were missing the point, and the laughter started to sound hollow. He spoke later about one particular moment, a sketch on set where a white crew member laughed just a little too hard. For the first time, Dave felt his comedy being weaponized against him. That was the breaking point. He boarded a plane to South Africa without telling anyone. No manager, no publicist, no entourage. Just escape. Hollywood called it insanity. But for Dave, it was sanity. A chance to breathe, to think, to reclaim his soul from a machine that had turned him into a product. In interviews years later, he said, "You can't get unfamous. You can only get misunderstood." While America debated his mental state, Dave Chappelle was walking through the streets of Johannesburg, free for the first time in years. No lights, no cameras, no noise. He had sacrificed fortune for freedom and reputation for truth. But his silence would only make the legend grow louder. Because when you walk away from $50 million, the world doesn't forget. It waits for your return. For nearly a decade, Dave Chappelle became a rumor. He lived quietly with his family in Yellow Springs, Ohio, a small, peaceful town far from the chaos of Hollywood. No cameras, no red carpets, just fields, friends, and the rhythm of normal life. The industry tried to move on, but his absence became its own myth. To fans, he was the man who had everything and walked away. To comedians, he was the Holy Ghost, the symbol of artistic integrity. Occasionally, he'd appear unannounced at small comedy clubs, a surprise 2 a.m. performance in Brooklyn, or a pop-up set in Dayton. No press, no tickets, just word of mouth. Crowds gathered as if witnessing a legend reborn. He talked about fame, hypocrisy, money, the very things he had escaped. It wasn't bitterness. It was wisdom disguised as laughter. During these years, Dave rebuilt his relationship with comedy on his own terms. He wasn't chasing applause anymore, he was chasing honesty. He read philosophy, raised his children, and studied the world from a distance. In interviews, he said he didn't regret leaving. "If you're not careful, Hollywood will take your soul. I just wanted mine back." While late-night hosts joked about his disappearance, Dave was crafting a new voice, quieter, sharper, and more fearless than ever before. He had turned exile into evolution, and when he finally decided to step back into the spotlight, the world that once misunderstood him would be forced to listen, this time on his terms. When Dave Chappelle finally returned, it didn't happen with fireworks or press conferences. It began in small comedy clubs, dim lights, low ceilings, a stool, and a mic. The audiences were older now, the world more divided, and the laughter more complicated. But the voice was the same, sharp, fearless, and brutally honest. By 2013, Dave started touring again, reclaiming his place one stage at a time. The silence of exile had given him new clarity. His jokes were no longer just funny. They were philosophical, dissecting everything from celebrity culture to cancel culture. Then, in 2017, Netflix called. This time he was ready, and in control. His specials, The Age of Spin, Deep in the Heart of Texas, Equanimity, and Sticks and Stones reignited his legend. Each one was a masterclass in timing, truth, and tension. The world had changed, but Dave hadn't softened. He talked about race, gender, politics, and hypocrisy, saying what no one else dared to. The response was explosive. He won Grammys and Emmys, but also faced backlash. Critics accused him of being offensive, out of touch. Dave didn't flinch. "I'm not here to be right. I'm here to be real." The more controversy surrounded him, the more his audience grew. He had become something bigger than a comedian, a cultural barometer, a man testing how much truth the world could handle. From silence to spotlight, from exile to enlightenment, Dave Chappelle's comeback wasn't just a return. It was a reminder that real art isn't about comfort. It's about courage. And for the first time in years, the laughter was his again, not Hollywood's. Today, Dave Chappelle stands as one of the most influential comedians in modern history. Not because he played it safe, but because he never did. His voice reshaped American comedy, forcing audiences to question why they laugh, what they believe, and what they fear. From Chappelle's show to his Netflix specials, his work became more than entertainment. It became cultural reflection. He dissected race, fame, politics, and identity with a precision that felt dangerous, yet necessary. For a generation raised on censorship and outrage, Dave was the reminder that truth is messy, and laughter is a weapon. You can hear his influence in nearly every major comic who came after him. Kevin Hart, Trevor Noah, Donald Glover, Ali Wong, all owe something to Chappelle's mix of honesty and absurdity. Even beyond comedy, musicians, actors, and activists cite him as a symbol of creative freedom, a man who refused to let fame rewrite his voice. Awards came. Multiple Grammys, Emmys, and the Mark Twain Prize for American Humor. But they were never the point. Dave often joked, "I didn't leave Hollywood to get awards. I left to stay human." In a world where truth is often filtered, Dave Chappelle remained raw, unpredictable, and painfully real. His legacy isn't about jokes, it's about courage. He reminded us that comedy isn't just about laughter, it's about connection, confrontation, and truth. And as long as there's something worth questioning, Dave Chappelle's voice will echo, somewhere between a punchline and a prophecy. The spotlight fades, but the echo of laughter remains. Dave Chappelle's story isn't just about comedy. It's about integrity. He stood on stages built by the system, looked it in the eye, and said no. He walked away from money, power, and fame. Not because he was broken, but because he refused to be owned. In a culture addicted to applause, he taught us that silence can be louder, that sometimes the most radical act is walking away. He turned laughter into truth, and truth into art. He showed the world that being funny and being fearless are the same thing, just different ways of telling the truth. Dave Chappelle didn't just make people laugh. He made them think. And long after the jokes fade, the message remains. Freedom is the only punchline that matters. This was Dave Chappelle, the genius who refused to bow to Hollywood. You're watching Stars and Scandals. Subscribe for more untold stories of Hollywood's most fearless icons.